Hey everyone, I'm back on my Wednesday live streams. Took a little bit of a break, helping coach my son's baseball and all that, and just crazy summer. So I'm finally trying to get back in the swing of things, and I'm kicking it off with walking through some CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous deployment, with Drupal, and it seems to be like a kind of you know the magic word. A lot of people want to do CI/CD, but may not know what it means, or maybe think it's maybe more overly complicated. So I thought this would be a fun way to get back in without just hacking on some other code. So I'm gonna walk through a Drupal 10 project that I'm building called WhiskeyDex. Yes, Drupal 10. It's a beta release right now. It's still alpha release, but it's stable enough. So WhiskeyDex is something that I created to allow me to track my whiskey collection because there wasn't really a great option for that. So like a neat little Drupal project. I didn't want to do it in Laravel because then I'd have to build the UI and just wanted to use all the basics of Drupal and just get something going. And with this, I have it deploying to DigitalOcean using a DigitalOcean app, and I have full continuous integration and deployment built in. So I was figured I could walk through that part of it and explain how I do deployments. Because there's the apps in DigitalOcean are cool, but have their own limitations. It's nice because I didn't have to set up a Kubernetes cluster and manage it that way. But with the apps, it uses Cloudflare with heavy caching, and Cloudflare's heavy caching doesn't respect the very header. So there's some tricks to do there. But one of the big things is that apps don't have a cron component. They just have a worker component that you can add, and that worker component is something that is always running. So I'm just going to walk through how I do continuous integration and then deployment to my DigitalOcean app, which is also stored into a container registry. So it does build an image and pushes to DigitalOcean's container registry, which should be wrapped up here. It's not. It's not listed right here. But yeah, it has its own container registry that pushes all the images. And when the image is pushed, it updates the manifest for the app and sends it all out. And if you are curious, all this is public on GitHub actually at mglomman/whiskeydex. So I have all the code up here. I was just building it in open because it's just a fun little project. So the first thing to go through is the build. One of the big things about doing let's actually just do continuous integration. Like, what does that even mean? So for me, continuous integration means it runs the tests and validations for me. Like when I push code, it does all the menial stuff that a team lead would have to do, or just like your safety checks. And for this, I have GitHub Actions plugged in. I am a big fan of CircleCI, but GitHub Actions they did really good at making it quick and easy to run at. So this is my GitHub Actions, and I'm actually going to bump up the screen a bit. I may have reduced the text size earlier when I wasn't live streaming as much. So let's just go editor, code editing, appearance. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. All right, it is. Let's just bump it to 18. And that was only the user interface. Hold on. How do you get the editor? Font. There it is. Let's bump it to 18. That'll make it a little bit easier to read. Again, though, it's all on GitHub too. So I have some basic environment variables that I set up for the setup PHP action, just extensions to install. I don't need BC Math. I don't need Icon V. I just copy this around for myself. I could optimize it a bit, but it's micro optimization. And my PHP version 8.1. The reason I did these shared environments is so that way I could break up my jobs a bit more, which I'll walk through as we go. So I have a handful of jobs that I run. So first is linting. I could probably streamline this with the new way that GitHub has reusable actions in your repo. but I'm not there yet. This was like creating commands in CircleCI, or I think orbs is what they call them now. So I have lint, which sets up PHP with my PHP version extensions. That's why I have the environment variables. Does composer install, runs PHP-CS and PHP stand. So that way I don't push any code that violates my coding standards. So that's the same as, instead of having a pre-commit hook, I can just go pre-commit hook or remembering to run it. I have it here. That way when I push code, that's going to halt my deployment, or at least tell me like, hey, you broke something. Same with if I do PHP stand. So those are my code quality tools that lint to make sure that I have, the kind of code that I want to have in my environment. And then the test. And again, it's the same setup. Generates my app key. This is just a command that I wrote because I use environment variables, which I'm not going to open the main one, but env example. It just generates stuff because I do have S3 configured and identifier. So that generates everything for the test run. I have it start the built-in PHP server, then run Chrome driver, and then it runs PHP unit against the custom modules. Again, you don't need to have Apache. You can just use the built-in server and it's A-OK. I did have a Nightwatch test run set up, but I don't have the Nightwatch.js test yet. So those are my 2 runs here. And how this works to make it, like a workflow with CI and CD, if I go to Actions, you'll see what the entire workflow looks like. So I have lint and test, and these have to pass before my build step. And your build should be part of your continuous integration step, not just your deployment, because you don't want to just lint and test your code. You need to make sure that your artifact builds. And that's where we're going to start changing from what it means like with CI to the CD part to the continuous deployment. So when you deploy, you're deploying an artifact. Now that artifact could be you're using rsync to copy your files to your server and it's doing it live, or you're using a deploy to one space, then do a symlink, and that's how you cut over, or you're deploying containers. Yes, thank you for welcoming me back to Twitch. It has been a long break. I'm excited to get back. Are you running PHP stand under lint or test? So I use PHP stand under lint. And ideally, I would actually have these be 2 different jobs, because I really don't like when we've probably all been there, especially like the days of Travis CI and that platform, when it was like, all right, we're going to run 6 tools in a row and it'll either fail it or it's going to have like awkward output and you have to guess which one failed. So I actually like to have each tool be its own job. I just haven't spun it out yet because it's kind of a pain in GitHub Actions. But under linting, I consider PHP stand to be a linter because it's more than linting, it's static analysis, but it falls into that group for me. So I usually will have the PHP CS and PHP stand in one, and then my PHP unit test, because I sometimes want to see if I want the test to run even if linting fails, just so I can see what all happened. So if those pass, then we go to the build, and that's where we're going to dive into building the Docker image that gets deployed, which is fairly simple. And again, so here it needs, this is the GitHub syntax. I know GitLab has their own CircleCI, but basically you construct a workflow or a pipeline rather. So you have a pipeline and it is made of a workflow that says, I have these 2 jobs. If these pass, here's the next part of my pipeline, and that's the build. And then here, I actually do the Docker login to my registry using secrets. And then I build the image. And if we are not in a pull request and it's the main branch, I push it to Docker or to the registry. And this is important here, this Docker build, because just because you're test passing or linted doesn't mean you have something that is deployable. If you're doing rsync, then maybe you do. But in that case, you probably also would like deploy it to your QA environment and see what happens there. So this is how I build my Docker files for Drupal. Is I use a build step. So I'll take the composer Docker image and mount it, and then I copy in all the required items. So in this case, my config directory, that probably could be copied to the other step, but I like to just have everything copied in here, and you'll see why in a second. In a minute. Then I copy my composer JSON, lock, bootstrap.php. I have this here to load my env file. And then my worker script, which is part of my deployment, and that's a React PHP script. So earlier on, I brought up that the DigitalOcean apps are cool because it makes it really easy to deploy. I don't have to manage a Kubernetes manifest, anything like that. But it doesn't have cron. Yeah, that was it. So it doesn't have cron, so there's no way to say every 20 minutes do this. Or it also doesn't have deploy hooks, so there's no way to say, great, my app deployed, now do this. And I work around that with workers. So question, WhiskeyDex is an app for tracking whiskey collection. What makes it an app? Absolutely nothing makes it an app because it doesn't have progressive web app built into it. It is just a Drupal site that is somewhat mobile friendly, so it's a thing you can use. That's about it. I am going to get it more, I'm going to get it hooked up with a progressive, with a service worker, so it can be a progressive web app. But for right now, this is just what I tinker on about an hour every 2 weeks or so. Or whenever I buy a new bottle of bourbon and need to get it added in, I'm like, oh, I should fix that thing. So it's just, nowadays I find it so hard to find things to code on that are fun, or not fun, but just like side projects that I'm like, this is what I actually want to sit and work on. So this is my outlet right here. And it's also making a good live stream because it lets me talk through some CI/CD process, which I know a handful of people would like to be more educated on, because I feel like it's murky, but does not need to be. So we copy in our scripts, source and web. I know you'll see a lot of this where it says copy. It has 2 periods. So this just means everything in the context, aka all of this, copy in. That can be easy, but that means your Docker ignore. You have to be very specific on what to exclude. So I like to be more specific, and actually this can be a good thing. So let's say that I had a new file called additional dump.json. This is actually an instance that's happening with a project I'm working on at Acquia, where we have a Drupal site that's deployed to a Kubernetes cluster, and we added a new file. Let's say we added this file like additional dump.json that's required at runtime. When we go and build, this build step would fail because this file does not exist. So let's actually deploy that. So let's say that we had a mistake, and let's say I missed out on, let me see, 1 second. Let's say I missed this file. Let's just make a new branch real quick. Let's say get new branch, example, build fail, git commit AV, example of missing file, copy, push it. So if we did copy with the 2 periods, it would automatically be pulled in, which means that it wouldn't fail. But it means that we're also not aware of what's exactly being copied into our Docker image at build time. And I like the explicitness that's available with doing so. So if we added a new runtime dependency, like runtime file, and it's not copied into the Docker image, it's going to fail the workflow and fail the build. So we're more aware of something that broke. So here's our build that's going right now. Let's see if I can. We'll squish that up a little bit and put it down. Oh, that doesn't work down there. Oh, just switch it over. So that's running. Let's zoom in. So here, we'll get to the chat real quick. So why do you want to create a Docker container on CI/CD if you have a DDev as well? Because DDev is not production ready. DDev could run production ready, but you're not going to run DDev in your production. Chances are you're going to run your own Kubernetes, or you're going to use Google Cloud Run, AWS App Run, whatever they call it. Azure has something. It's images and running containers is the most versatile way to deploy artifacts. It's like back in the day when they would make like operating system images. Like anybody that's worked in IT, especially at like a large organization or university, right? Like you had to go to every computer and flash it with like the image that every computer had. Think of it that way. It's the old school way that we did like virtual machines and flashing OSs, but as a image, a Docker image. It's the new way of doing virtualization. So you can push it around. And talking about DDev, the local development environment tool, that's not as much as we want our local development stacks to be like production, they're not. So that's why we have this build process. DDev does not use my same Docker image. Now I could use that locally, but I like all the extra developer friendly things that DDev gives me. So that's why you wouldn't use your local development stack as the same as your one that you push to production. Although you can. There's lots of reasons you would want to, but in this case, I don't. So the CI/CD deploys one Docker for the DB and another one for the application to DigitalOcean. So in this one, we don't deploy the DB because I have the managed Postgres database provided by them. So the main thing that's going on here is we build the image and push it. So I'm going to go first through the build, and then we'll get to how the deployment all works. So as this is running, let's pop that open. So again, like I said about this whole copy, I'd like to be more explicit so that way I know what is being copied in. Obviously, everything underneath web, I need that. That's where Drupal lives. That's where my custom code lives. And that's where my Docker ignore prevents me from accidentally copying in any of my dependencies. So that way they get built at runtime. But also I make sure it doesn't copy in my local settings or anything like that. So next, so Ghost is still running. Oh, this isn't going to crash. Wait, this should have crashed at Composer install because the file was missing. All right, well. Wait, why is this running deploy? Hold on. Oh, because with GitHub Actions, you can't restrict a job to be based on pull requests. You have to do the whole if part. All right. Got ahead of myself. So here we go. So the build, again, we did the Docker build, and here's the Docker file. So then again, we'd run, Composer install. In this, I ignore platform requirements because I don't want to install all of my extensions in this build step. I just want Composer to build it for me. And then I get into the Apache and PHP image that I use. This is based off the PHP one, which if you were to go to the Drupal library, so I actually just base this off of the Drupal Docker image. So like I'm pretty sure if I go to Apache Buster, I copy this verbatim. The main reason I don't use this is it copies Composer into the image, and I don't want Composer in my runtime environment because Composer is a dependency management solution tool, and it shouldn't be in production. And it also copies in and builds a Drupal site in var.www.html, which I don't need, and just a few things like that. So I copied all these other goodies because those are what are relevant to me. But one thing I do have is I was trying this out on render.com originally, and I guess I could go back because I had the same workaround for workers. But one trick I usually have with different environments, some systems, when you make a push, they'll do the build for you, and then they have various arguments. So I have a environment called deployment identifier. That deployment identifier is set to tells Drupal what its deployment identifier is, and when this is set, it causes Drupal's certain caches to reset. I have a blog on that somewhere. Let's see. Should really get searched back on my site first. Yeah. That took me to Medium. That's not what I was looking for. I can't even find it. Oh, here we go. So I'll just quick drop this in the chat as well. That's the video too. It's not even the blog. Either way, it resets the container image. So as part of your deployment, you want to have that set. So that way, when you push, you don't need to flush all your caches. You just do some of them. But at the end, this is the important part. I install APCU for caching, and then I copy from that vendor image and copy it into var.deb HTML here. I lock down settings.php, fix up a few items, set the doc root, and then run. And that builds the image. And when the image is built, if the image builds so we get a pass, this didn't work as I was hoping it would in this example, because it should have crashed since bootstrap.php was missing. But let's go ahead and let's go check out main. And let's see, let's do composer outdated so we can see a deployment. When it comes to deployment, that's actually really automated because we're using DigitalOcean apps, and that handles the deployment. They have a GitHub action. Okay, I can run a composer update. So we have deploy needs build. That's why we have this line here. So if lint test pass, we build our image. If the image is built successfully, we go and deploy. And then we use the app action that DigitalOcean provides, so that way I don't have to make all the API requests myself. Say this is my app name. I pass my registry token, and it says the name of the component and that we're using a registry. This is the repository. And then I just tag my images with the GitHub hash, with the Git hash. So what this comes into, if we go to the app again, yeah, worker. Okay. And then if I go to settings, so app and worker, these are components that are deployed via a source from my registry. And this is essentially modifying or telling DigitalOcean to modify the manifest on their end to that image. When the manifest is modified, it triggers a deployment. So I think if we were to go to, it's like app spec, we've got all that right there. So that modifies all those items. So let's go ahead and do let's update Drupal core. So let's do composer, update Drupal. I'm going to do Drupal/core with an asterisk to get all of the core packages, because there's, we have core recommended, core scaffold, all these things. I'm going to hit W. Get all that updated. What's neat is it was really easy to actually build a fully fledged Drupal site on D10 already. I mean, I have address for the address of distilleries and the entity module for some helpers, but it was nice to be able to get a lot of it done without a bunch of contrib. All right, so updated to 8 Alpha 6. Now I should test this in a PR environment, but I don't have that set up to deploy to PR environments. So let's do git commit AV upgrade Drupal core to Alpha 6. Let's go ahead and push. Doing it live, and we're seeing what happens. So now if I go to my actions, we'll let this run through. It's going to take a few minutes, but the deployment will then get kicked off, and we'll see it live in the overview. So I'll get over to there. So again, as a quick summary with all this, so GitHub main, I've got my lint and my test job. This runs PHP CS and PHP stand Drupal. I have my test, which runs PHP unit, and that can include functional JavaScript tests, functional kernel and unit tests. If those two pass, I build the Docker image. And one reason I have this behind a needs is it takes more time to build a Docker image than those two runs. Why waste my money, like my CI time, building the Docker image when it's not going to go anywhere anyways? But if those do pass, I want to build a Docker image because I shouldn't merge code that could cause... Drush did update. Okay. Should have made a pull request. Because why would I want to build my image if those fail? And then if those don't fail, I want to make sure that my image builds correctly before I merge it. So now that I updated this, let me go see what's erroring. Oh, that's right. This got fixed. Your widget. Oh. All right. Well, I fixed this. Is DigitalOcean about a budget-friendly alternative for small site projects? How much it costs for a site? So I don't know if it would necessarily be. Let's see. Where's the billing for this? Estimated app cost. This says 10. So right now, I would say maybe it could. So this app platform costs $10, but then my database costs 15 because I have a managed database. That's where it gets you. Anytime you try to use one like a cloud service that automates hosting, the database is gonna eat you alive. Now the good part is, let's say that you had like shared sites. I don't think there's anything too secret in here. If I click on this, nope. So this is my database. I could create more databases in here and use this, and I think that'd be fine. Like, you could share a database between sites to help spread the cost. But otherwise, this app is about $10 to run. Now, I know you can run a Drupal site on a $5 DigitalOcean VM, because that's what this one is. Actually, this might be a $10. This is a $10 Docker instance that runs. It's actually has DDev production built into it, but no CI/CD set up. Well, this is just, come on now. So much for doing something live. So I think you could. And one thing I'm going to go through my personal site, which used to be hosted on Kubernetes and DigitalOcean. But I think you could, even with Kubernetes in there, one, that's overkill, probably managing it yourself unless you have like a lot of time. But you could run a droplet. What is it? Let's look at this real quick while this runs. So let's say that you want to have a Drupal site run on the cheap. You could create a droplet. One droplet, general purpose. Let's say, or basic. All right. Oh, we don't need that. Basic. Premium Intel. Let's just do regular with SSD. $6 a month. So you could get, I think you could get by with a normal, like a small Drupal site on a regular SSD for $6 a month. You just have to go in and manually set up the database in Apache, which you could use Ansible for if you had it set up, and manage it that way. And then you could use a CI/CD process that uses rsync, which I want to try to grab a copy of, or try to do that on the stream if I have a chance. 62. Oh, good. Looks like I fixed some of my own bugs in PHP stand. But we had a whole other one here as well. That's not what I want. All right, one second. Let me get this one fixed up. 27. Can I do PHP stand, ignore next line? Because that error is coming from PHP stand itself, or PHP stand Drupal itself. Or maybe not. No, it's not. I made the error there. 37. All right. Diff. Git commit AV. Fix PHP stand. Let's do a push. So again, so see there too, like continuous integration. Now, locally, I should have run that. It's slow enough, but let's say I am in a busy, and I did have a PR environment going. Within 28 seconds, I knew that I did something wrong. If I had this as one big job, like let's take Travis CI Labs. I love to dump on Travis CI. Travis CI would have one long running job, and it would fail, but it'd keep running though. Like it keeps going. So by breaking it up, I'm able to see right away this failed without burning resources. I know a lot more of the CI items like break instantly, so it doesn't keep running. But in this case, I could let my test run in the lint, so I knew what I had to fix to unblock my build. There you go. So I've also had times where I write my code and I know it doesn't meet coding standards, but I don't care because I'm just getting the test written and proving out what I'm working on. And it can really kill velocity nitpicking the code style when you're just trying to get something done and fast and quick to verify it. Especially when with modern infrastructure, it's so much faster to run it on your CI than even your local machine. I've experienced that where tests could take 2 times longer locally than pushing it up to the CI. So wait for this to build. Not that that's passing, and then we'll watch for the deployment to kick through. So again, so that's the main idea between CI/CD is, continuous integration. Every time you push code, it does something that you would have to do manually, and use that as to prevent like developer fatigue. Because that's one reason I like PHP stand is every time I review code, I can't catch every little thing that I'm like, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. That's what your tools are for, is to help make you more efficient, more productive, and prevent that code review fatigue that we all will hit if you do the same thing over and over and over again. It runs every time you push a commit on a pull request. So that's configurable. And for my app, I have it set to, what do I do at the top here? So whenever there's a push to main or a pull request made against the main branch, it runs the GitHub Actions and ignores changes to markdown files. So if I update my README, I don't want it to deploy to production because that would be frivolous. So I have this configured. I know you can configure it differently in each CI. And then GitHub Actions used to skip some of the magic stuff Travis CI would do. Yeah, Travis CI, it's just, it was great when it came out, but it came out right around the same time, the idea of like, you need a pipeline with stages, and it didn't do that. And that's what I was familiar with because I worked at a shop that had Bamboo, which I have no idea if Atlassian. I don't know if they still have Bamboo CI, if that's a product. It is. All right, so I was used to using Bamboo as a build tool, and this had pipelines built into it before Jenkins had Blue Ocean and all of that. So I just love the idea of like, I have my pipeline, I have stages, and it does things when things pass through. So now we have the deployment, and it's building the app action. And again, this is just like a little Go module or something that helps manage manipulating this API. I looked into do it manually, but if you don't need to do it manually, never do it manually. Leverage tools that exist. Okay, so come on, load that. So the app. So once it deploys, then I'm going to talk about my deployment script. So we've talked about the integration. We've talked about doing the deployment or getting the deployment done after it builds. So actually, I should have shown here. So if I go to build, we'll see that push image. So because I'm pushing to the main branch, it pushed the hash to my image registry, or my container registry rather. And if I go in and expand this repo, we can see the most recent tag was this git hash pushed 1 minute ago. Now the deployment is running. Did it actually? Okay. So the logs aren't pushing out yet, but this action, as we saw here, it manipulated the manifest and bumped to that hash. So if I go to the deploy logs, we'll see that the build was skipped, deploy log. So here we're running. If I refresh the page, there we go. And then my worker. So this is what we're going to talk about next as part of the deployment. So due to the fact that App Platform does not have deploy hooks that says, oh, your build was completed, I have a worker that's running. And this is a common workaround. I've done this for, not for deployments, but on some customers that had platform.sh with their workers to handle things that needed to happen like every minute, and cron was only allowed to run every 5 minutes. So this is a React PHP script that I have, and it gets copied into the, remember this does get copied into the Docker image. So let me show you the worker first. So if I go to settings and worker, and again, this uses the same image build. So that way when I deploy, my app and worker have the same code base at the same time. And it has a run command. So instead of running it against Apache, it actually overrides my Docker entry point to do php worker.php, which kicks off this script. I have a little helper command for running a subprocess, but I use React PHP, which is a reactive PHP framework that lets you do async PHP programming. Essentially, it runs a loop and does things periodically through the loop. So this is how I worked around not having a way to do deployments. And this is the same problem I had at Render, and you probably have anywhere else that doesn't necessarily have like a deployment hook. So what I do is I add a timer that is delayed by one. I don't believe this is 1 second. I believe it could be like one. Oh, it is number of seconds. Okay. So once my app is loaded, I could even make this be 0.1. But I tell it to run drush deploy. Before I had this much more granular, but due to how I was having a bunch of caching issues, so I went for the full-blown just burn everything. But ideally, I would never run drush deploy because drush deploy clears your caches like 5 times along the way. We could see that in this this output here. So you can see running drush deploy actually doesn't output it here, but between each step, it clears the cache. So I have this run. So once the worker comes online, it executes the script, which then runs the deploy, which would then run, it runs database updates and does a cache rebuild. This is supposed to also do a config import as well. But I'm not seeing it. So, and then I also have a periodic timer, which 600 divided by 60, what is that? Every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes it executes drush cron for me. So the worker is the same image that's deployed as the app, but just is a long running process. And then in here, I just have the extra bits where I start the process. start it, and then whenever it has an error, I just print it to the screen, and on exit, it will terminate. So if you are curious on this is all React PHP. I did a blog post before on React PHP Drush, where we use this for an e-commerce site. There we go. So we needed to run queues on a Drupal site every 30 seconds or every 2 minutes. So that was really hard to do with a cron. So we had a worker which ran React PHP and did this script and handled that for us. So we used React PHP to not call Drupal code directly, but to invoke Drush commands on as processes for us. And that's how I get my app deployed onto DigitalOcean. We have, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where did my GitHub go? There it is. So use a flow that goes from lint to test to build, and when it's on the production branch, it deploys it to DigitalOcean, and then triggers it here. And uses the React PHP script to do the deployment process. So if you had Laravel, you would use this to call Laravel migrations. In this case, I want to actually remove this again. I was having issues with caching because of Cloudflare, and Drupal was pushing so much cache into Cloudflare, I could never get it to invalidate, because with App Platform, it's cheap, you know, $10 for one app, and then the database costs, but I have no control over the CDN. So I'm going to put this one back. We'll see what happens. Essentially what I have here is I put running a worker into a command with a callable for after. So that way I run drush updb. Once that passes, I rush drush CIM. And ideally, any cache clear would be done manually in an upgrade hook to only invalidate render caches as needed. So I'm going to put that back. And let's do get new branch. No drush deploy. Remove drush deploy for granular deployment. And then I'm going to pull up how I did this with Kubernetes on my personal site. All right, so I've got that pull request there. So all in all, it's mostly just about your flow and then finding the tools available. Everybody has instructions on, if you use GitHub Actions, you're going to find a bunch of people that wrote actions. Like Azure, I know they have a blog post that says, here's how you deploy to Azure. And it has step by step, you build your Docker file, and then you copy, it tells you what secrets to add, and then there's two actions. One action logs into your container registry, and then the other deploys it. And it's like their container runtime. And they make it super easy to do. So it's just, you just follow their instructions for the most part. So what I wanted to show is I'm going to bring up my personal site, which has CircleCI running, although I don't know if I really check it as much anymore. Nope, I moved the repo, so I don't have this. But what I did is I had CircleCI doing my builds and pushing that to my DigitalOcean registry, which was tied into my Kubernetes cluster. So I still have the Docker file. So as you can see here, this is much more simplistic. That's because so as we saw with WhiskeyDex, this is actually one thing you could do too to improve your deployment process or your CI. But it adds yet another layer of something you need to maintain. Just be wary of that. All of this code here that is copied from the Drupal Docker image from the Docker library, it never changes, but it can't be cached. So before I had spun it out to its own Docker image that was built, so that way it could be cached. So it made my builds even faster. And that's one way you can optimize, is every time you have to do a build, it relies on cache. but this isn't cached when we're rebuilding it in the CI. There's ways you could try to do it, like pulling a previous version. So there's advanced workarounds there to make it faster, but I'm not going to go into that on this one. So same concept from Composer install, copy it over, push it out. And what I would do is jobs, build, push, deploy, workflows. Okay. So in CircleCI, they have you define your actual workflow. So instead of each job saying, I need this, you compose workflows. So you can have multiple workflows. I think on Drupal check, I have one of these built. So my jobs, I have build and push, and then deploy requires build push and only on the master branch. I like how CircleCI has this defined. It's much more verbose or much more explicit than GitHub Actions, but everybody has their own flavor. I think this is how GitLab CI looks. I cannot recall since I don't use GitLab CI often. But this had the same, actually this didn't have anything of the same approach because I don't have tests for my personal site. But what I did do is it just required building and pushing. Oh, no, this was only in the master branch. So it would do a build. If it failed to build, it would fail to deploy. And I used the make file for a bunch of this. So build just received the version. Again, I had the version based off of the current tag, which if there's no tag, it gives you the hash anyways. Yeah. So the tag will be based off of the date. I'm not sure, but this is what I have. I probably copied it from somewhere. So I do make build, which would build the image and then set that build version. And build version is what I use for my deployment identifier. And then push, which would push it to my registry. And if that passed, then I get into the deploy. And this is where it's pretty much the same thing as App Platform, but much more explicit because I'm actually manipulating my Kubernetes manifest versus it being abstracted through App Platform. So I would install the Kubernetes CLI, which kubectl, kubecontrol, whatever name everybody gives it. So I'd output that. And then I had a cluster certificate as a secret, and I would export that to a cert. And then I would do a deploy. So in this deploy, I have make kube CircleCI manifest. Now, if you're familiar with anything with Kubernetes and Helm, I didn't set up a Helm chart, which is like templated Kubernetes manifest. I just had a template, and I would use sed, however you say it, to replace some template with the actual image. So if I go manifest CircleCI, this should be, we'll go here. So this is my Kubernetes manifest that I'd have deployed. I'd run the make file, and it would say, okay, here's the name of the deployment, here's the spec, my template, pull secrets. I had a secret registered for the DigitalOcean registry. My containers. So here's what would get replaced. This would get replaced with my image name. So in the case of like App Platform, it's WhiskeyDex : git hash. The container, environment from config map, password. This is before I realized that volume mounts are a bad thing in Kubernetes, and I had volume mounts set up, along with the Redis sidecar and my volumes. So this is just the deployment spec. And what happened, the magic out of all of this is the fact that I changed the image name. By changing the image name, that causes Kubernetes to go say, oh, I need to pull an image and deploy it. So I would generate that manifest and then run kube apply, go to the server and apply that YAML. And again, that's just like what is happening in my GitHub for WhiskeyDex. It's not Kubernetes, but it is still saying, hey, there's a spec somewhere that says it's this image at this hash or this tag. Change it, change the tag. And once the tag is changed, that causes the system to do a deployment. In this case, that's about Kubernetes, is eventual consistency. You tell me config, I will eventually become consistent with that configuration. And how I did my deployments with Kubernetes is there's kube rollout, and you can check the status. So I would apply my deployment, and then I watch it. So what this command would do is kind of hold the CI. The CI would hold and wait for the deployment to be finished. So this would wait for the changes applied up here to wait. So it would get it spun up, wait for the old one to terminate. And once that was terminated, the status would pass and the command would stop blocking CI. And my workaround for handling these, and this is before jobs became stable, so maybe you could use Kubernetes jobs now. But I would get the pod name. So kube get pods. I would get the name of the pod. So that way I could SSH into it and basically run. I would sleep 20. Something happened here. I had to wait 20 seconds. Can't remember why. This is from like 2 years ago. I would do kube exec into my namespace for the deployment pod and run drush updb, config import, and drush cr. So I didn't have a way to just run something on deployment. Essentially, I just had my CI wait for the deployment to finish and then perform my actions. I'm not sure the best way to do this. I don't know what would be the best way to do this now, because Kubernetes does have jobs, and maybe there's a way to tell your deployment to do a job once it's finished. But that's how I did it. Or you could queue one up. I believe when talking to Sam Mortensen about render, and I keep saying render, but let's actually show what render is. So render is like, I call it the Stripe of cloud. Like, it's just a new up and coming cloud host that's pretty cool. But they don't really have much for documentation, and I think you just use an API. Is there, like, after the deployment happens, you call the API to do a one-off job, or anonymous function. Let's see. They have, they do have deploy hooks. Oh, never mind. This tells it to do a deployment, rather. I don't think it. Yeah, every service gets a deploy that can trigger a new deploy. Yeah, this doesn't let you necessarily do stuff after deployment happens. So that's one of the biggest items. Okay, render had cron jobs not deploy. No service is perfect when it comes to the continuous deployment. You have to figure out how you're going to work around it. It's probably the biggest gotcha there. So that's how that was deployed. I want to see if I can get an example, because these are all kind of complex. They involve building Docker images and storing those somewhere. So that's one thing with the cost too. The container registry, I don't know how much this costs. It's what? Let's say it's $5, right? So the container registry, $5. Spaces, since I'm hosted in the cloud, I don't have a volume. So this is another $5, because actually this is where all my, when you go to WhiskeyDex, this is where all your CSS and JavaScript aggregates are sourced from, not on the server. So all in all, like WhiskeyDex probably costs 10, 20, probably like 30, $35 a month to run, which speaking is fairly cheap. Oh, about CircleCI, sorry, I was just showing a quick example from how I used to deploy to Kubernetes. What a different way. Just a different example of deployment. So this is not related to WhiskeyDex. This is just how I would deploy. I guess that database is dead, so I don't care. This was an example of how I set up and ran deployments to Kubernetes from CircleCI for my personal site. So just a different flavor of how I did things before. What I want to show is an example of, I wonder if we could run through it. Let's see, got about an hour. So let's try this out. Let's go ahead and close this. Close that. I'm going to try to open up a few things on the side. Let's go ahead and try to deploy let's deploy a Drupal site via GitHub Actions to a what do you call it? A droplet. For WhiskeyDex, I run it every 10 minutes, but that's because I eventually will have lots of things happening. Yes, let's merge that. So let's make a new repository. And there, call it Drupal CI CD rsync example. I want to try this out. So let's make it public and create repository. Now, I got a few things I want to pull up, but they are from private sources, so I'm gonna get them open in my side. Monitor. And then we're gonna go ahead and try to set up a VM and deploy to it with GitHub Actions on the fly. And I think I can get this because we'll use Ansible for it too to maybe quick get it configured, but that might be a pain. So, all right, let's get this started. So let's get a new terminal window. I'm gonna look at OBS again to make sure I can not blocking it. All right, so let's go to CD sites. Let's do composer, create project. Let's do a Drupal 10 site. Why not? Let's call it Drupal CI CD. While that's going, let's go to droplets. And let's create a new droplet. Oh, that takes its sweet time to finish up. All right, let's do Ubuntu. Let's do the regular SSD. Let's do the 6-month one. Add volume, no. Let's put it in New York. Default, SSH key. Yeah, that one. Oh, wait, let's do this. All right, we're not going to do this secure way because we're going to do this as an example. So the password is Drupal CIC. Wait, is it going to make me? Must contain. Blah. All right, 1 second. We're going to get this. I want to see if within 1 hour we can get this deployed to DigitalOcean droplets. All right, there we go. We'll make a, whoa, too big. Notes. Let's do a suggest strong password. Copy that. I'm going to destroy this after the live stream, so can please store your password secretly. Well, that is not very secret. Enable backups, monitoring. No, we don't need any of that. How many do I want? Select a project to me. Let's tag it with demo. Create the droplet. No, do not update my password. All right, well, this gets busy being provisioned. Let's go Follow these instructions. Get status. Oh, wait. Oh, get nets. Hold on. I hate this part of setting up a Drupal site. Get ignore. Let's copy that get ignore and make dir config and sites default settings. Oh. CD sites, web sites default. Get. Oh, that's not what I want. Raw. All right, we'll get that there. And touch settings.local.php. See if I have something I can copy really quick. That's not what I want. Vim settings PHP. Oh, yes, this is what I want. We're just gonna have it use SQLite locally, and which actually I just realized I didn't need that because I have this here. All right. Guess this isn't going to be completely vanilla, so I am going to copy a few things. So composer require .env. touch.env.example. Vim it up. Which this would actually, this is a good idea because then we can use that in our on our server. We can use the environment variables. We can just say that the database name is DB. All right. So we've got our code base. Think vim.get info exclude. I just want to exclude that notes.text really quick. So let's git add, git status, git commit. That looks right. Initial commit. So let's go push and start to figure out how we're going to deploy this. Now, I don't want to actually SSH. I don't want to deploy anything manually to this server until I want GitHub Actions to do it. So let's go ahead and we've got this set. Let's do make directory config private touch config dot get keep touch private dot get keep PHP vendor bin drush. Oh shoot, yeah. Composer require drush. Let's get drush in here. PHP vendor bin drush si. Yes, account pass equals admin. I'm gonna copy What? Oh, cp env example 2.env. Oh, I know why. Jeez. It's sad. I wish we just had env files built in by default to Drupal, so it'd make this a lot easier. Get and vim composer.json. Actually, why am I vimming this? I'm not even Vim Pro. I've got this open. Sure, let's just copy that. Require. Although I guess if I would use the community composer example, that would have had this built into it, but it is what it is. Let's do composer update to just fix that. And PHP, let's get the site installed. To make this a little bit easier to demo, we'll make a profile that installs from config. Gotta be kidding me. All right, well, if I can't deploy at least the code fixes, oh, what? Testing Drupal 10 alpha with Drush 11. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. All right, woo! Thank you for the resub. What? Yeah, a whole year? That's crazy. All right, for all, you gotta be kidding me here. Git repo. Well then. All right. We're just going to worry about deploying the code and using the user interface. Or actually, let's do web. We don't need Drush. All right. It did install. I guess we don't need any config exported. Never mind. I was going to try to do the default config export, but this is fine enough. No, it's not, because we want to demo deploying config. So let me just get this one item set up, configuration. What am I looking for? Sorry, doing a lot of boilerplate setup here just to get this thing deployed. So for all my projects, I have an installer profile that just maps the config. And I think in Drupal's future, this will be much more easier to do, where it's like a recipe versus a single file just to ensure it installs from config. Config synchronization, export. Oh, come on. There we go. So let's do git status, git add config, export, core extension. Let's replace standard with whatever I named this thing. CI/CD profile. The reason I'm doing this is once we deploy it, then I can just install the site and it's going to install with this. Git commit AV. What changes did you make to sites.default? Oh, no. Status. Git commit AV. Add config. All right, now we're here. So let's go read some docs. Reserved IP. No, 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 no. Man, oh man. Switch teams. Where's support? Let's go. Let's do real quick. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Do DigitalOcean Ubuntu LAMP setup. Let's just get this configured. It's been a long time. I always just use Ansible, but I want to skip Ansible because I feel like that's just going to add more to all of this. So we're going to run through it. Let's get SSH root at, yes. All right. Password. We saved it. We saved it somewhere. There we go. All right, so we're in here now. Let's go get this. Let's go get a LAMP stack built up. And then we'll get GitHub Actions to rsync our Drupal code to that. Now, rsync's important because it will copy new files, it will skip files that haven't been modified, and it will delete files that shouldn't exist anymore. And that's the important part. I have this set up for a client, or had this set up for a client that has a Laravel app that deploys to AWS on an EC2 instance. No containers, no nothing, just rsync, and then use is a symlink to point to the new Docker root for deployments. Take a look. Oh, yeah, okay. Rules updated. Okay, so we've got this here. Let's go to HTTP. Yeah, continue. I'm aware it's not secure. All right, we've got it. We've got it. Yeah, find. No, what? Okay, let's get MySQL. Yes, I would like to continue. Okay, then we got yeah, secure it. Blah 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 blah. Do we need to secure it? Yeah, we'll do that. We can run it, but doesn't mean we need to make a secure root password. The good part is once we get to GitHub Actions, that'll be really quick because we just have to start writing YAML. And while that runs, I'm going to quick look at one of my rsync scripts. Oh, now I gotta figure out if I wrote this down somewhere. So I can't find it. So, all right, secure. Oh wait, what? Validate password plugin. No, we don't. Root password is root. What? What? Oh, when is this? Foobar. Foobar. No, well, stop it. Two, three. Set password. Um. Well then. I'm going to get out of that and figure out what I did wrong, or see if we can just skip it. Everything was going well. Sure, we'll hit yes this time. 0 is low. Root. Root. Yes. Failed. Set password has no significance for user root as the authentication doesn't store it. Data server, please can use. Gotta be. All right. That's new, but it's been a long time since I've configured that. Okay. All I want to do is get to this next step. So let's just see if I can do sudo mysql. Great, we're in. Installing PHP. Let's get PHP set up so we can get this deployed. While we do that, let's just, I'm gonna start multitasking. So let's go ahead and do a new file. We're gonna do .github workflows deploy.yaml. Not deployer. We want GitHub workflow. So again, looking off to the side to copy a few things. So let's do this. We're going to do on released. So we're only going to deploy when there's a release that goes out. Actually, we'll do on and main. Let's do name deploy ahoy. We got edit this to add index.php, which I don't know why they put it last. If we're doing PHP stuff, we want it to be first. Let's save it. Oh, wait, was it already there? Oh, it was, and you have to go delete it. So much for me reading. All right. Restart Apache. Get the Apache status. Sure. Okay. Yeah, okay. We don't need that. Let's get app CLI. And all right, where is, we don't need ls-var www html, right? That's the index. That's where we're going to deploy to. So let's go ahead and get this deployment started. Multiple JSON schemas. GitHub workflow. So let's bump up this size again. Make it a little bit easier to read. So one thing that I learned about in GitHub Actions, and I actually don't remember if I had set up for WhiskeyDex, is there is a concurrency. And when you have concurrency set, it doesn't allow it to run multiple times, which can prevent like out of sync deployments or ones that happen at the same time. Okay, so let's see again. We'll do the whole, let's do jobs, deploy, production. So let's just do deploy. We'll do deploy. name deploy. Oh, don't give me Kubernetes. Runs on Ubuntu latest. Steps. Uses, and that's actions. Checkout at v2. And then we want to set. We need to set up PHP. So uses with PHP version. We're gonna do 8.1. Extensions. What do we need? PDO, MySQL, and I'll just do that. We'll see how far that gets us. Covers tool composer 2. So then we run composer install. We want to do composer install. And then we want to do the rsync. And why do I feel like I've wrote this as a blog post before already? 1 second. Discovery. I swear that I thought I wrote about this and using rsync, but I guess not. So I'm gonna have to pull out of my head. Let's see. 1 second. I want to find if I can see it in my rsync. Oh, there we go. Okay. So then what we want to do is we're going to go do this. Long and short of it is we're going to do rsync at these commands. Did I do this on a live stream before? So why would I have this? So I can't remember what all these flags do now, but it should be about, oh, let's go look. Rsync flags. So again, started this with doing like Docker deployments, like the quote unquote modern way of doing virtualization. And I just want to show an example of doing CI with CD, and that's not as complex, you could say. That's like just using a virtual machine and not needing to have, you know, a whole like container registry and everything else. So let's just look at flags. Just give me flags. So we got RZ. So R is recursive. Z is, this is an alphabetical. Oh yeah, compresses the data. All right, C. Checksum. So it will skip. So that's the important one. It skips files that haven't been modified. So that makes it faster and appropriate. It doesn't just overwrite everything. E is for executability. Okay, so this preserves the executability, which for Drush is important. L is for links that include symlinks. And that's really important for a composer, because if you do an LSL vendor bin, oh, I thought these were always symlinks. Okay, I thought that these would do symlinks before, or maybe they used to. Now they just do copies. But we've got all this brought in here. So let's go ahead and we're going to do an rsync ignore. And what the rsync ignore does is allows you to specify files that should be not copied over, like .git. Just say .git for now, I think. Yeah, 1 second. Where did I? Yeah, we'll try that out. So what we should do is, I'm not even gonna bother to try running this locally. Let's do it all. I don't want to deploy any code myself. We're gonna do it all from here. So just do git commit AV, or git add. What did it add for VS Code? Settings. we don't want that. I don't want to add that. Git status, git restore, staged, VS Code. If you didn't have absolute paths, sure. So let's do git commit, add basic rsync. So let's push it. Oh, chat. So no, Storm, I had PHP Storm open earlier, but for this, I just figured it a little bit easier to move around. Root might be configured to only use as a socket. That could be. The default now is only having root login through a socket as a root user, blocks accidental remote logins. That's smart. So if you can't change the password because it doesn't have password login, only passwordless over socket. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm not a guru at a lot of this. It's been so abstracted away from all the tooling and like Ansible that I never know. All right, so push this and let's just look at what action says. Deploy ahoy. Unable to resolve. All right, well, I typed that in wrong. Uses. Oh, yeah, that's because there is an S that I didn't copy. Don't. That's the. Come on now. Stop copying from other things. That's ddev workflows. There we go. Diff. Commit AV. Fix. Fix setup. PHP name. All right, so let's push it. And I honestly don't know what rsync does when you don't pass it a password. So we're going to see what happens. Normally, I would set up an SSH key as a secret. So what we can do is at least set that up. So while this is running, all right, so rsync, composer install, look at that. Nice and fast, 7 seconds. Host key verification failed. All right, so what is that? How do you do GitHub action host key validate? I know I've had to do this before. So let's check this out. Key, host key validation, key scan. That's it. No. Configure private key. Yeah. Public key. So let's just do this real quick. Known hosts. I don't want to put the known host behind that. I just want to do. Right. This should be it. If we do key scan. Yeah. Okay. So that is what we need to copy. So let's go ahead and do that up front. So we'll do run. Again, a lot of this is not secure. You would do this in a much more secure fashion, like not putting your IP address right here and making it a secret. So you know what? Well, it's too late for that. But we'll get diff, get commit AV, key scan. Or maybe we'll do that at the end. Because then I can clear things out and I can be more boilerplate examples. Oh, Oh, Grasshopper. Thanks. Glad you I'm glad I'm back. Sorry, I got sucked into this going down a rabbit hole. Um oh, so that what role does Bluehorn Digital play nowadays? Nothing. I don't do anything with Bluehorn Digital now that I'm at Acquia. That's my job, and I don't really do side work because one, I'm tired. Two, there's three kids in my house, and just luckily enough, I have a job that provides, so I don't need to do a lot of that extra hustle anymore. So it's there, you know. I didn't like close out the LLC because it's always a good thing to have in your back pocket, but it doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. I mean, maybe like WhiskeyDex, if I made it a thing, then that would fall under that umbrella. So basically, Bluehorn will be where I put anything that might make money that's not side work, but like just projects. All right, let's see this deploy, key scan. Come on. GitHub Actions, rsync, host verifications. Also, this is one thing too. Like if you are starting to get started with like the CI/CD and you get hung up, just internet everywhere. We could set up deployer for this actually. Man, how did I get? I use deployer for my other project that uses rsync, and I'm trying to figure out how that doesn't have issues, but this does. Environment deploy. Yeah, that install SSH key with host known hosts. There's rsync. All right. No such file as known host. So I guess we need to do a run mkdir p touch b known host touch. Probably the most annoying part of doing anything with CI and CD is the fact that you have to push. You have to make code changes and push. There isn't a great way to test it out locally, and you burn a lot of time initially when getting set up this way. But then once it's running, you don't have to think about it, and then you can be productive. Forgot. Doesn't help when you make it in your current directory and not. Oh. Yeah, no matter how experienced you are, your first pipeline fails or your first 50. Like I feel like, and it's always just like why this should just work. I feel like half of my time now is like the more senior you get, I feel like the whole 10x developer thing is like you solve these stupid little problems to make people scale out, and these stupid little problems are writing YAML files to get continuous integration to work right. Because even though it's just modifying a pipeline, it's still something senior for some reason. Like it seems like it shouldn't be, but it is. So if you're getting started with CI/CD and trying to be faster, it's not just you. Host key verification failed. So let's do this. rsync use password versus SSH key. Just you're mixing. Oh, what? Just rsync. Da, 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 da. I guess I need to make the key. Or do I gotta do ESSH? Let's see. No, I have my... I don't want to use a key. I want to be lazy about this and not generate a key. Connection refused. Host key verification failed. Known host. Oh, well, what? Oh, removing the old key. Oh, because I did key scan instead of key gen. Let's try this. Sure, let's try that out. Maybe key gen. Yeah, you have to understand the interactions behind all the YAML. That makes sense. Yep, it is definitely something of experience. And it's just so wild because so much has been abstracted away. Let's see if this makes it happy. Let's keep it. Come on. Bum, 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 bum. All right, I'm gonna try this other way where we're gonna use deployer PHP. Deployer PHP. I'm done trying to figure out rsync, and I'm gonna let a tool work for me. So deployer is a deployment tool, and I really hope we don't gotta this will be a lot easier for you than just using rsync directly, because it allows you to do like rollback releases. So let's go ahead and we're gonna compose a require deployer, and we're gonna go straight to install, get started. So let's do PHP vendor bin, dep init. Select a language. Let's do PHP templates. I'm kind of nervous to pick the Drupal one just because let's just see what they generate. It's the repo name, hosts. Okay, so we got deploy.php, deploy path. I don't recipe Drupal 8. I don't trust other people's deployment recipes. But I'm a very skeptical person. So recipe Drupal 8. What is this saying that it does? Deploy, prepare, publish, shared directories, writable directories, common. But yeah, how does it prepare and publish? All right, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to follow through on own. So in this case, we've got I'm just going to copy some of these over. Quick side question, any tips on? Let's see, what was that? Why? Copy some stuff. Oh, that I have no idea. This issue, absolutely no clue. No idea. Hook nonsense. Yeah, 2 years ago. I know I still see it all the time. I don't know. I'm not I'm just gonna avoid that thing. You know what? Actually, I don't want to go through deployer. Or I'm gonna leave it first. First I want to get this to work. yeah, that issue, I feel like I would need to put xdebug on it. So rsync, let's do rsync null dev null and strict host key checking no. I guess this is where I gotta specify the SSH thing. Yep, there it is. So all I want to do is copy this. There we go. All right. I'm, like I said, shortcutting everything because I just want to make it easier. So we're going to do rsync with these SSH arguments. Get diff. We're going to just do get status. We're going to ignore the composer JSON unlock. Maybe we can move it to deployer after this. Actually, no, because it's almost been 2 hours. So let's just check out composer.lock, get status, rm deploy. Let's get, so get diff, get commit AV, skip the checks. All I want to show is that an insecure deploy get push. Rsync SSH provide password. How to pass password automatically for exposing a password. It's not safe. That's fine. I don't care. SSH pass. I'll wait to see that this fails. What? Stop with the host key verification failed. Just GitHub Actions rsync. At this point, I'm just going to find an rsync deployment action. Deploys files in GitHub Workspace to a remote folder via rsync SSH. Switches, remote shell commands, remote port. Well, here we go. For simplicity, deploy to the examples, deploy key. All right, I just got to make a key. So let's go ahead and DigitalOcean droplet deploy SSH key. Let's go to settings. Oh, look at that. Somebody wrote a wonderful little doc. Yeah, git commit, host, create your SSH key. Blah. Yeah, so they're doing a Docker compose deploy. Huh. But if I would have read this, commit, create the secrets. Oh, this is the place that's not it. Well, I guess this isn't going to get too far because I can't get past this part. Root at. Or what I should actually do is you should always test it locally, but I don't want to. That was the whole point of this. So this kind of fell apart real quick at the end. But, oh well. It's my first time back streaming in a while. Oh. Vim.ssh known host 239. 239. Delete. 238. 237. Oh, well, wait a second. That could be a big problem. Oh, seriously? Oh, it would help if I had the right server this entire time. That would really do it. So, jeez. See, doesn't take much. I had the wrong IP address. All right, so let's get back here and see what error shows up. Also, we can have this index page replaced with the Drupal site. And I realized I didn't even need to install MySQL before because we could have used SQLite, but oh well, we're there. All right, so what was it I got to do here? What is it that I have to do? Apparently I had this copied in here and it's secret, so I can do that. Deploy.key, identity file, SSH key, key scan. All right. Push. Let's try that out. So what do we do? If I would have just done it right the first time. What is it? DigitalOcean droplet keygen. Oh, whatever. This not even what I wanted. It's not even DigitalOcean. Stop. Sure. Create open SSH key. Okay, so let's go create a secret. Let's go through this. In this case, we'll call it private key. So secrets for actions. New repo secret. Private key. Cat SSH. Now this you would want to do a separate key for, like you'd want to make a deployment key. So you generate the SSH key, you copy that key, you add it as a secret, and now that secret's available. So let's go copy some of this code here. Composer install. We're not going to do a key scan of platform.sh though. We're going to key scan that into the known hosts. And private key to home deploy.key, rsync, rsync specify identity file. Okay, so we'll copy, paste off of this. Should be -E, some key will be home deploy key. Let's try that out. Git diff, git commit AV, set up private key. Push. And of course, there's cloud. So we'll go back and let's go browse the actions. Yeah, there we go. Should have just read this, but found it late. So that's, you would generate the key on the server and then put that as the key as a secret. Come on, why did this work? Again, need to run B. Touch. Close. Git commit AV. Sure hosts. So you put the key in there, you generate it, and then that's going to be your deployment key that you use. And then that allows SSH in to manipulate in your CI and CD process. Did I just make a commit with WQ in it? I probably did. I do it all the time. Where I think I hit colon, but I didn't actually hit colon. Or escape, rather. And then I end up double doing it. Unprotected private key. Too open. Oh. Oh, you tabbed to the wrong window. All right. All right. So run. We gotta do run. What is it? Chmod 444. Deploy. And like I was saying, like this stuff shouldn't be that hard, but for some reason it is. Like right here, it is just like painstaking, like paper cuts. Fix permissions on keys. And that's why you have tools like Ansible or using Kubernetes to deploy images, so that way you're not constantly doing this, because then again, if you do it a lot, you remember things like, oh, you need to have stricter permissions. But I don't do this often, so I don't remember these things. So I'm going to keep this repo up so that way it can be an example. So that way people have some things to copy and paste from. I'll probably put the IP in a secret and a few other things to make it a little bit cleaner, and add a README. All right, deploy. Permissions 4. What permissions do you want? 400. Oh no. There we go. Okay. It wanted 400. I forgot. Okay. So hopefully this is going. And then one day I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch this again and write blog posts for it. Permission denied, permission denied. Public key password, connection refused. Unexplained error. Wait a second. This doesn't make sense. Hold on. Private key. This. Well, one, this feels backwards. Hold on. GitHub Actions. Deploy SSH key. No, deploy key. That's when you set the pub key. Hold on. I did something here stupid. Not stupid, but I'm forgetting something here. So, what am I? Authorized keys? Is that it? I have to add, wait, CD SSH less. So I need to add myself as an authorized key. That's it. I'm pretty sure that's why. So let's rerun the job. Because that could be why. Man, I haven't done this in so long that I'm just drawing blanks on everything that I should be doing. Okay, this seems to be doing its job now. Okay, all right, we're in the server, so let's look at cd var www html ls vendor web. All right, there's just one problem. We're in the subdirectory, but we need to do vim apache. What is it? Sites enabled default, and document root is web. What is it? Sudo apache. Let's restart Apache. Which I did not do apparently. It's what is it? Sudo service Apache 2. So restart. Error occurred, but that might be because it's L root. So we need to make their private and own www private. L. Nope. CD websites default. So we got it deployed. Let's just quick do a touch settings.local.php. Vim. Let's get the error figured out quick so we can consider this a success and that we have deployments. What I want to do is turn on the verbose logging and see why it's throwing an error. You run fixed permission after deploy. That's, you know what, you're right. It's not about the database permission. It's about why did it open all of that. It is, you're dead right on that. Site's default files, or actually it's more than that. CD ls la. This should have the shortcuts. CP. It did not rsync the env file. So let's do vim env or cp.env.example to .env. I did this myself by having this env file and not having it be populated. So this is my fault. That's why it crashed. Undefined index. Oh, I have no idea what the hash salt's supposed to be, so we'll do some. No. All right, there we go. So we're able to deploy. So you're right. There should be the file system fixes. So let's do that. Let's add that in. So we got a few things here. Disabled. So sudo apt install php gd php dom. No. PHP XML. Sure. Install that. Yes. So we'll do a well, actually, we shouldn't need to fix the file system after this. It should just it's like that one-time setup. So you do own www data www data websites default files. Actually, the files directory didn't get made, so make dir p websites default files, and then you own it. So that's the one part. There's always the initial setup, and that's where this kind of stinks because I didn't do that. Settings file is not writable. You shouldn't need to be writable. Database. Oh, it doesn't have apt install php SQLite. Yeah, there we go. That's why, because it doesn't have system requirements page. Come on, just tell me how to install this extension. Because I don't know. You want to PHP install PDO SQLite. Again, said I know how to do this in Docker. I have no idea how to do it on anything else. Yeah, PHP 8.1 SQLite 3. Shouldn't it be it? And this is not FPM service, Apache 2. Yeah, it's not Apache FPM, so I bet I got to restart. There we go. Okay. So this is a very basic Apache setup that doesn't have FPM, so I had to restart Apache to get the new, to get the reloaded PHP. Oh man, this has been a long time since I've had this kind of setup. It's PHP MB string. Yeah, so I'm hitting like a lot of paper cuts because I have not set up a vanilla server like this in forever without using Ansible or a Docker image. So Apache does that do? Rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. Grep, rewrite. That's a no. What? DigitalOcean Apache 2 mod rewrite. Sure, how to set it up. Gizmo, yep. Apache 2. Ah, there we go. System control, restart Apache 2. Sure. All right. Whatever. We're going to continue anyways. Okay, so now it's going to input our configuration, which means that then we can test doing a deployment, or rather updating our deployment hook to actually do things. So after we deploy the code, that's where we want to do a GitHub Actions run remote SSH command. Because I don't know the SSH action. Let's just do this. No, not that. I just... All right, so username, we'll just say admin at example.com. Save continue. Like, what do we do here? Isn't it just... Well, I can't even remember the most basic of things. No, I don't want to do SSH action. I just want to know the... Don't remember how to run SSH commands to say to do a thing. So just real quick. So what is it, like SSH? Go foo. That's not it. I hope anybody watching this that has any concerns about not being aware of how to do CI/CD or service management, don't worry. I hope this is building your confidence as I struggle on myself. Okay, it is just that. I don't know why I was thinking it was way more complicated. So now we could do SSH root and do which PHP. So we can say PHP var www HTML cd, what is it, cd var www HTML. So we do PHP vendor bin drush. Yeah, so drush updb, yes. So now we have our deployment hooks. CIM, and actually let's just take advantage. For most sites, just doing drush deploy is what you need. So we have our site here, which the site name is site install. Let's go fix that and call. So let's go to config, export, site settings. My scroll is completely super sensitive for some reason. Is it system site? Let's call this Drupal CI CD example. So now you get diff. We've added the deploy call. We changed the name, git commit AV, change name, and test deploy. Git push. So there you go, we pushed. And as far as I know, there's no way to track actions with the GitHub UI inside code. So let's go back to our action. Change name and test deploy. So sets up PHP, does our install. Adds the key for us. Rsync should have added the verbose flag so we could see what got copied. Oh, so there we go. I forgot to set the identity file. So why don't I fix that? Let's add the rsync verbose. While that loads, we'll fix the identity file. I actually don't know which way to put the argument. If it goes first or last, we'll put it here though. It is definitely better to use FPM. So you can use your flavor. I have on my WhiskeyDex app, I have Apache plus FPM somewhere. That's where I have this. So if you're using PHP, if you're using PHP, always use Apache. Use PHP FPM. If you use Apache or Nginx, doesn't matter. Just as long as you're not using Apache and mod PHP. Although recently I've been told doesn't matter, or whether it does matter, but there's been improvements where mod PHP isn't as bad. This example, using mod PHP. Oh, you know what? Is this okay? So one thing that I realize I've done is ignore web sites default files, as I did not ignore the files at all, and it's blowing away the files every single time. Let's get diff. But honestly, I just would always assume PHP FPM, which is like what I think everybody does for Laravel, Symfony, and the whole 9 yards. Fix key and ignore sites default files. What I want to do is I've got to have this file somewhere else. Nope. Oh, that's where. Okay. Let's go back and do failed reverse search. I just did it. Whoa. Oh, make command. Hold on. Why is it searching for sites default files? Chown dub. I just want to get this deployed to work. There we go. Yes, this will be on my YouTube. So every video I record via OBS and then upload to YouTube. And I wait 24 hours, or no, 48 hours, because I am a Twitch affiliate and they have a rule to not upload the video anywhere else for like 48 hours. So I do this and I upload it to YouTube, let it process, and then schedule publish. All right, we're getting somewhere. So now the deploy failed because it didn't know where I wasn't in the right directory. So let's do a CD and then do the ampersand, get diff, AV, fix, drush, deploy. Reading the chat, how it would be better. Mod PHP has generally been faster, but FPM is just light years better for resource management. Yeah. So multiple processes, and I think FPM would be better in the fact of using I feel like somebody just proved me wrong on this. But the idea where you can flush content and then have like the process linger in the background longer. So I've done that for FPM, where we flush the content, but then use the tail end of it to like do extra processing. In this case, Drupal. It will wait to write some of its caches until all the content has been flushed to the end user. And I don't know if that's just because we have FPM, and that's one reason it's possible, or if mod PHP is fine too. I don't know. I used to say that it was just a feature of HTTP and using FPM at once, but it might not be, and I could be very, very wrong. Why is this failing? Well, I'm going to mimic this command really, really fast. So if we were to cd into home, bum, 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 undefined array key driver. Come on, Drush. I've had this happen because Drush doesn't get env. It's cat.env. Oh, and because it blew away. Okay, so also to add to the rsync ignore. So what it's doing is it's deleting files that don't exist. And so we want to add .env to the ignore. So cp.env example to .env, vim.env. Let's fix this. Deployment identifier. Give it a nice hash. And let's do this again. Get diff, git commit av, do not delete .env with rsync. It's kind of important. And I missed that in the example I was copying from too. So that's one thing when you use rsync and you have the delete flag, is it's going to delete files that shouldn't be there, which is good. When you like removed code, or let's say some malicious file was uploaded, it could get purged. But if you don't have your rsync ignore set up correctly, you're going to have issues like I have had. So again, I'm just going to have that open quick. So we got the rsync. And so we can see here, incremental file list. It's only copying over things that matter. And this still failed. Bootstrap failed. Why did the bootstrap fail? Oh, because got to reinstall the site again. Settings file. Or let's just do PHP vendor bin drush, but this is going to completely ruin. So that's one problem with these, with doing rsync, is it deployed our files and our deploy hook failed. So we had files deployed without our migrations in place, where when you use, I guess it's not a perfect world with Kubernetes either, but let's say that you had an issue running your schema deployments, you could roll back the code. at least, where using just this rsync can be a little bit more difficult. But anything that's stateful, Drupal, Laravel, whatever, having a failed migration once you've deployed code is a whole other thing to deal with, which isn't the end of the world. So, my websites. Sites. So it wants this to be writable to continue. Let's do PHP vendor bin drush si account password equals pass. Yes. Yeah, Laravel. I like Laravel's migration part and how it has rollbacks. Doesn't always work. But yeah, that would be nice. Especially since, as you said, Drupal doesn't really have a way to roll back schema changes. So let's get the vim settings.local.php. Again, a lot of the reasons I'm hitting these errors is because I did the env deployment and I did other things. It's not exactly stock Drupal, and I should have done that to make it a more seamless experience. So let's get the error logging back to verbose with config override. Refresh. Attempted write to read-only database. That's the other part. Okay. So rsync ignore needs to ignore website's default settings.local.php and private. So cd bum 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 a l shown www data to www data for private. And what is it, like capital R is recursive? So if you do ll private, it's now not read only. Okay, so I wanted to sample a deploy hook that changed the site name. Now we're at Drupal CI/CD example, so that doesn't really work. What other config could we change really quick? Oh, that's right, we don't have clean URLs installed. Apache 2 mod rewrite y. Already enabled. Start. That's just silly. What is it? It's like if we do index.php/, that's the workaround. Yeah, there we go. So why don't we're going to do a deployment hook. We're going to test the deployment hook by doing composer require Drupal/admin toolbar. PHP, we have the database locally, so let's install admin toolbar. And then we're going to export the configuration. So that way on deploy, we get admin toolbar. Config export, rsync, .lock. Yeah. So add admin toolbar, commit, push it. So now that all the gaps should be fixed, and we're not going to delete our database anymore, and the SQLite database. That's the problem, is it was deleting the SQLite database and settings.local override. So it should do deploy, and I'll be able to refresh this page, and we'll have admin toolbar installed. And there's even more, like once you have dev dependencies, making sure you don't install those in production. Okay, so that's the rsync, copying over only what mattered. Is this going to consider it a failure? Do run because this log success. Oh, come on. So drush 11. Note that drush 10 is incompatible with PHP 8. That's not what I want. Releases. Where's issues? Drush 8 warnings. Where's this issue at? My past 2 weeks, I feel like I've just been dependency nightmares. This open, close. Well, just logger manager. Drush logger manager. Where's this coming from? Consolidation. All right. Okay. So consolidation log, console log level doesn't exist. Consolidation log y. Like, that was last touched forever ago. How? Well, I'm opening an issue at least. Issue, bug report. I don't care enough for that. Well, the deployment's not going to work because we have this, but what we can do is go to, we can do it the old school way, core update. This isn't the right way. Is there a need for maintenance mode during the process? I honestly never do maintenance mode in the process unless I know that there is a like a really big update I need to run. But even then, we try to find ways to do it without taking the site offline. I'm a big proponent of zero downtime deployments and preserving all the caches, but that is also extremely requires a lot of curation. Oh, so consolidation log 2.x has it. So here, composer y. Consolidation row. Oh, why not? Why not consolidation log 2? So let's try composer require 2. Failed. Op is a PSR log 1 and 2. All right. Well, shoot. The problem is drush requiring something that was removed in log 3 because of the PSR. Is there a PR for this at least? Why is this not crashing? Or is it just because I'm on Drupal 10? And now I'm going into wild territory. Drush log. Source. I wish Drupal just provided its own command line tool to do this. because I don't want to mess with this. Oh well. Well, I hope that was a decent deep dive into doing some CI and CD. Unfortunately, this is held up by third-party tooling that I can't fix. I mean, we could if we patched it, but that's just now getting way outside the realm of what I can do. Just give a moment. So I'm going to leave this example up, so I'll put it in the chat as well in case you weren't able to find it. And I'll add a README, and we can work on making this be like a quick example of just doing CI/CD with a basic rsync to deploy code. And again, this is running on a $6 DigitalOcean droplet. So maybe I can add the README to do CI/CD with rsync deploying to $6 droplet on DigitalOcean. Which what I should do, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to copy my referral link and put it in here. Thanks. I hope it was enjoyable. I felt like a few things just got too squirrely, but they always do. So guess that's just the way it goes. And hopefully it was educational, some examples, and just showed like, hey, a lot of it's like walking around in a dark room and having Legos on the ground and you stub your toes and crush some. But it's pretty neat. I'm hoping to do one on like Kubernetes. I'd like to do one because WhiskeyDex on App Platform is neat. But again, the whole CDN issue, it's just not quite there for me. So I think I might roll it over to Kubernetes on DigitalOcean and maybe walk through how I set up a S3 connection for Drupal. So with WhiskeyDex, I don't store any assets in the cluster or on the in Drupal's volumes. It's all directly like being put into an S3 object storage type setup. So all my JavaScript aggregates and everything are in here and nothing is stored on the container. So there we go. Thanks for joining in. I'll be back next week. Next week, I might be working on Drupal Rector or PHP Stay in Drupal. We're trying to do something fun like that. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like me to do, just hit me up. I'm on Twitter and all that. So thanks for hanging out and have a great day. See you next time.